Hello, everyone. This is Eva here with Dan Winter in this amazing series of conferences for normalizing frequencies as the standard and inspire all the restorative movements to know about devices and knowledge that can support nature restoration and human beta behavior, acknowledging deeper structures of reality. So please, Dan, introduce yourself and let us know how to make seeds grow 5 times faster and make water recover crystal purity and these crystal structures and fractal structures. Welcome.
Thank you, Eva. Eva's a hero because she's so dedicated and she has such outreach and global scale, and she's never intimidated. She's always there. I'm glad, Eva. Nice to be with you. So most of you know me. I'm Dan Winter, fractalfield.com, therify.net, theimploder.com, and I've been teaching physics of consciousness and implosion technology for my whole life. My background is electrical engineering, systems analyst with IBM, psychophysiologist. Currently, I am the inventor of many implosion technologies. Our flameandmind.com EEG technology is implosion-based for bliss, and the binaurals there. Our therify.net, we're going to be talking about our plasma tech doing successful rejuvenation in 25 countries. I'm the inventor along with Paul Harris. And I should have mentioned Patrick Baughty is my partner for the Flame and Mind. And the Imploder.com implosion tech is my invention, but for many years my partner there has been Jason. Also, Jason Matozo, fractalwater.com. Our primary site is the Imploder.com. And that's what we're going to be talking about, the science of implosion. And for that, we're going to use some pretty pictures. Let's see if we can get our pictures together here. So I have a couple of PowerPoints here. Let's see if this is going to work. If I put this up here. So are you seeing my face okay there, hopefully? Or you're seeing my screen? Good. So this is a recent sort of public relations piece we did. It's called A Challenge to Earth Scientists. Dear scientists of Earth, if you knew why a vortex, either mercury or water, or any vortex is piezo or liquid magnetic, if you knew why a vortex can make gravity and also spontaneously get colder, negentropic, and implode charge from the vacuum, then you could know why objects fall to the ground, and parentheses, and how the Nazis won the war, and the cause of life force, consciousness, and all centripetal negentropic forces. That is, the universe is not condemned to entropy. And then the ETs would categorize the Earth as interstellar worthy, meaning we are no longer in the dark ages. So dear scientists of Earth, please don't embarrass us. Tell us why vortexes make gravity. Hello. So, and then it says, you know, Dan Winter in our article, fractalfield.com/conjugate gravity, have clearly described by equation how this fractality, the fractality in a vortex, causes gravity. And I've built a rapidly cascading series of successful tech with the physics, the Imploder.com, Therify, Flame and Mind. And the new technologies, which are even more amazing, stay tuned, will be energy and propulsion tech based on rotating conjugators and do make most of Earth look like the Stone Ages. So what is your answer? Now is the time to prove to Earth that Earth scientists are not fools. I mean, it's foolish enough not to know why objects fall to the ground, but if you don't know why anything is centripetal, then you can't even identify life, and therefore you can't help make a seed grow. So we are in the business here of learning why and how vortices get centripetal. So on the upper left, you have the picture, the classic picture of the water vortex, aka Victor Schauberger, and that vortex is piezoelectrically doped, which means a bit of piezoelectric rock powder, as in Steiner, is in the water. And then that flat impeller on the bottom is about 30 to 50,000 RPM. And the inside coating on the necessary egg shape would be certain high dielectrics or even a thin film of gold, for example. And if that's done properly, that vortex when it spontaneously starts getting colder, will begin to start generating electric power from gravity. And the story is that it worked so well that Hitler wrote Victor Schauberger a check. Well, more than that, he used the vortex then in Vimana Hanebu, which is how the Nazis won the war. And the embarrassment is that it's because we did not know how implosion makes gravity and centripetal force and makes seeds grow. Hello. So on the bottom, there's a summary here that when phase velocity, that if you're tracking this spiral down the cone, which is a 10 spirals of gold mean, when phase velocity charge wave, that is the acceleration of the phase wave front, heterodynes recursively, constructively, then charge compression becomes charge acceleration towards center. In other words, that form of compression in fractal geometry allows the waves to add and multiply the waves of phase velocity. And that turns compression into acceleration towards center. And that acceleration of charge towards center of fractality is named the gravity. So this is the first time probably most of you have learned why an object falls to the ground. And I suggest it's the first question you should be asking your kindergarten teacher. So we sort of start with that information, and we're not going to dwell on the physics here, but just to look at the evidence. So I was the one who discovered and proved by equation the fractal structure of hydrogen. These are the three primary radii of hydrogen, which I discovered were exactly integer exponents of golden ratio times Planck, which means you start with Planck length and time, the musical key signature of the universe, and then you simply multiply the golden ratio, and you get every wavelength, which is implosive and centripetal and life-giving, a way out of chaos. And so, and we published a bunch of physics papers on this, which maybe we'll show you some examples. And so it says here, dear physicists, no one will accept your answer that it could be a coincidence that 3 hydrogen radii are precisely golden ratio exponents of Planck. So you physicists must now deal with my answer to why golden ratio times Planck equals hydrogen. It is because golden ratio conjugation of phases is how hydrogen implodes and makes gravity, permits charge to accelerate towards center. So we might look at some more pictures of what that looks like. This is, let's see if this will move over here. I wanted this over here. Oh, that's better. So it's that golden ratio adding and multiplying of waves down that vortex, the perfected vortex cone. And so I had this geometric design computed, perhaps maybe 15 years ago, something like that. And I had these designs from my early work on the graphics. Here's how the golden 10 spirals of the golden mean form the top-down view of hydrogen and DNA and every living protein. And here's how the adding and multiplying of the sine waves is recursively golden ratio for starting the concept of implosion. And here's how that's applied to the pine cone and gravity. So pine cones are kind of rain-making devices for this principle. Well, then I spent perhaps 10 years implementing this in injection molding. So I took this concept and I took this equation, which I later proved is how hydrogen is built, and I built that accurate spiral on a cone right here. And these are some of the first injection molding we did with the CAD CAM I built for my equation. And this became the Imploder.com. And just to animate that cone, this is sort of a fun thing. Let's see if it's going to play here. I don't know how fast that'll play on your biofeedback loop here, but it's a pretty elegant implosion cone. So it is ideally the trajectory which maximizes the possibility of charge implosion and therefore centripetal force, and therefore, you know, why Victor Schauberger's vortex spontaneously started to get colder. And so we built the Imploder water technology. And the earlier imploders looked like, this is the earlier super imploder. We took that vortex nozzle cone there and we built 3,000 Gauss magnets on it. And we had dramatic results. Here's the featured article in Grozine about the Imploder.com with the help of fractalwater.com from Jason Matozo. And we had it published here, growth from 673 to 777 grams and bricks value up, et cetera, and film documentation. We'll see a lot more pictures of that. So this is the original super imploder. But that vortex nozzle, which now forms our triploder and imploder shower, and maybe you'll see some pictures of that in a minute. Yeah, that's the original vortex nozzle. And that vortex nozzle is still available. In fact, we just ordered $10,000 more worth of those nozzle. Is still available at theimploder.com as the imploder shower and the triploder, which is biodynamically so powerful. This is an early version, which was in a clear, which was beautiful, but was not as strong. Yeah, so here's some of the super imploder test results. We had typically 150% to 200% growth improvement in hemp marijuana with the super imploder. Now, point being that here, this is a published, these are the results. This is showing 168% improvement in growth by weight of this hemp, actually, the marijuana. Now, the limitation of the original.
For people to understand the imploder.
Go ahead, please.
Excuse me, Dan. For people to understand the imploder, basically creates negentropy, that is the implosion within, and recovers fractality of water and purity. Can you go deeper, or maybe you go deeper afterwards?
Well, good.
Just for people to understand why things, life force, why things grow much harder, because the imploder increased life force by the equation of negentropy.
Yes. What's happened is when the water travels down that cone, and this is from the cover of my book, Origin of Negentropy. When the water travels down that cone, that vortex, of course, it naturally wants to speed up because it gets centripetal. But if that water is a bit piezoelectric, so for example, it does tend to work a little better if the water is slightly hard water, and we do wonderful in hard water. In fact, we can often replace a water softener. So when the water is traveling down that cone, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, the charge implodes along with the water. And so the capacitance around that cone vortex becomes implosively centripetal. And we've actually proven this because if you put a seed next to the vortex, that germinating seed will grow faster, even if it doesn't get that water, because even being in the capacitive field of the vortex causes the seeds to grow better. And that's a fundamental point we wanted to make here, was that what makes a seed grow is how centripetal it is. It's very simple. Visualize a seed, the way it gets its first nutrient is if it can suck in the nutrient. And the ability of a seed to suck in its first food is how centripetal it is. So obviously, if you add centripetal force charge to a seed, it will grow better. It's very simple, because centripetal force is life. Implosion force is life. We'll talk about that a lot more when we get to the plasma, where the original Stonehenge was built because they used it to charge the seeds, double the growth, et cetera, et cetera. In most of the pyramids, the actual main purpose was charging seeds. And we've demonstrated that. We have reports, clear reports, from 200 to 400% increase in growth when you zap the seeds, marijuana is just one, with the therified plasma just before germination, just like Hermes had in mind when he designed the pyramid for charging seeds. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. The logic of this conversation was to present where the hardware is right now. So the super imploders was powerful, but that nozzle vortex had some pressure limitations, about 60 to 90 psi maximum, and obviously being only 3/4 inch. For several reasons, it was not ideal for commercial applications, anything large scale or high pressure or powerful, et cetera, et cetera. So we badly needed a much stronger unit, and that's what we have now. It's called the Ultra Imploder, from theimploder.com, and also from Jason, who's been a hero here. So this is the Ultra Imploder. So we now have, it's all stainless, it's virtually indestructible. You can use hundreds of psi, high pressure, no problem. Solid 1-inch pipe threads, both ends, and even more powerful magnets. So before we had 3,000 Gauss magnets with steel lensing, we were delivering over 4,000 Gauss, and now it's much higher than that. These are super, super magnets. And this is the vortex at one end. Now, back to Eva's question about why does it make the water grow, make the seeds grow. That when the water goes down that vortex and it's piezoelectric, it comes out capacitively charged with more capacitive charge spin. Then it enters a super powerful centripetal opposing magnetic array, implosive magnetics, and it's like the spinning rotor in a magnetic motor that, since the rotor is charged, the water ions coming out that vortex nozzle, and it's entering a strong DC magnetic field, it's literally like an electric motor, so that spins and shreds, so you get dramatically reduced molecular cluster size, which means solubility, means hydration, means bioavailability, means growth. And that's the point. That's the principle behind Super Imploder. I have this lovely picture that how that nozzle actually looks. Yes, here, this is what I wanted to show you. So as the water comes out that nozzle, it forms this beautiful spray pattern. And this is the original clear array, but see that vortex. And what you need to know about that vortex, and people say this is the Imploder shower from the Imploder.com, and people report the water feels dramatically silky and energized, and they feel energized. People love these things, even that one little nozzle. This is sort of the fun picture. Now I get to play my fun picture, I think. Oh yeah, my pictures are working. Okay, so you see, now watch when you touch that vortex. What's happening there? You touch the vortex, and it responds to touch. Why, that's better than having a girlfriend. So if you can see when the water is coming out of the vortex, it's piezoelectrically charged that spin, and it's adding charge to your body. But then think about the pressure geometry that happens when you touch that water. So I think, yeah, here we go. Okay, so watch. Why did it do that? How come that water reached out and responded to touch? I think you need a girlfriend like that. I mean, no, I'm kidding. That responds that well to touch. So, and here's some of the earlier, this is the material science. We went from a Fortron to a Resonance Technil for the original nozzle, which are still available. And here's some of the original pictures. Yeah, I think this picture we should play here. This is, so we stack the opposing magnetics in a particular way. Now look at this animation. I don't know if you can see this very well, but these are two south poles of a super powerful magnet with a washer in between. Now watch what happens. These are opposing magnets. This is south pole opposing. How come they're sticking together? This is introducing the metaphor of phase conjugate magnetics. Why do opposing poles of those two magnets with the right kind of, it's a high permissivity washer in between. Why do the opposing poles of that magnet stick together? Well, there's a lot more to the conversation about phase conjugate magnetics, and we may get to that when we talk about the therapy, because we use a harmonic recipe to create phase conjugate magnetics. Okay, I'm going to stop the screen sharing for just a second. This is, this is the GDV analysis before and after the charge of the water from the Imploder. And this is the entropy also with the GDV analysis. GDV is gas discharge visualization. It's basically a form of Kirlian, which you can do on water, pioneered by Korotkov and a friend, and you can measure the dramatic effect of the Imploder on water. Yeah, some of the lab tests are here. I suppose we should finish this. This is two separate lab tests across the world proved at least 60% reduction in chlorine in the water when it went through the Imploder. Also, I should say that we measured laboratory tests. 20% reduction was measured in both Chile and Canada in the wattage it took to do hydrolysis when you use a super Imploder to pre-treat the water. Now, these are some of the early pictures. This is the green beans a few days. Do hydrolysis. Here's the before and after. And here's some plant pictures. Yeah, you'll find when you go to the Imploder.com and you click on Imploder Magnetic Research, you'll get hundreds of these pictures from all over the world. All these before and after on the plants from the greenhouses. We actually have an animation on one of these. I don't know where you can actually watch the difference. Here's an early example of setting up implosive magnetics on the tube array. Here's some of the more advanced CAD/CAM work we did, building larger and larger implosion nozzles. You can see some of the models we made. We're building implosion. Here we are, imploders. I thought we had that animation. Yeah, here's a 30-day spinach test. The size of the spinach with and without the light from 9 to 10 inches. Sorry, without the imploder. With the imploder, 14 to 15, about 150%. Yeah, and here's some labels. There's just dozens of these pictures. We have results reports from around the world. This shows the super imploder water plus the light experiment here, the dramatic effects on the right compared to the control on the left. Okay, I clicked to stop sharing. Now we have a drink of water. How am I doing, Eva? Oh, Eva, your mic, I think, you're muted, I think, Eva. Eva, unmute your mic.
Sorry,
there you go.
I
Yeah,
hope people are understanding the relevance of water spinning, because nowadays we are suffering these confused leaders that wants to tube all the water in the world and give you cards and say how much water you can take from where and what to do with it. But if you put water in pipes that goes straight lines and can't spin like she does in nature, water will be dead and you have no crystals, no you can explain much better this.
That's true.
It's only restricted by spinning. So if we don't spin water, we don't allow water to free spin.
That's right, and that's what Schauberger did so beautifully. He documented that the braiding in the water was, in fact, I have those pictures. Maybe I'll bring those pictures up here in a second. Share screen. Do this one more time. So that, I guess, gives us an excuse to share our Schauberger pictures. But let's see where I put that. Now I put that here. I put that here. Second. Get to that screen. Hide this file.
Are you sharing the screen? Yeah, add the screen. Here you go. You are sharing the screen.
There, okay, sorry. So this was some of the experiments from the Schauberger tradition, where they built these braiding devices. Let's see, there's more of them down below. Yeah. So you see, in the path of the river, they built these devices to braid the water. I thought there were more of those pictures where you actually cause the river to braid. This is from Schwenk and Sensitive Chaos. They use the antler horns, and this is a braiding device that they put dents in the pipe to cause the water to braid, etc. And all of that has the result of putting spin density back into the water. And essentially, negentropy, self-organization, life force is always related to a cascade of frequencies, which looks like a pine cone. And the broader the spectral conjugation, the bigger the pine cone, the more centripetal it is and the more alive. So if you keep the long wave and the short wave spins both nested, one inside the other, the fashionable term today in physics is entanglement, but actually in phase conjugation is the solution to the perfect form of entanglement called perfected embedding. And embeddability is a name for fractality. And so you're embedding the short wave in the long wave accurately, and you get that nest of spins alive in water, and that's life force. So we should discuss a little bit of what that means also in terms of human health. That when we began marketing the Ultra Imploder, for example, the people in Ohio, it was a wonderful group of Amish farmers in Ohio, and credit to Joel Yoder on this. And every single Amish farmer they showed the Ultra Imploder to chose to buy one. They ordered 20 at a time. And it's because, of course, you know, Ohio, like many flat areas, after a while, the well water gets pretty dead. And so that it was a taste of the water that did it for them. But then they began to notice the health effects, because some people have said as many as half of human health problems are a lack of hydration, solubility. Classic example, a lot of people, their back problems, it's the little donut washers, sort of like rubber washers between your spine bones, which when they get dehydrated, you got back troubles. So if you get better hydration, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, gray hair. Now, why is my hair gray? It's because it's mineral solubility. Well, I have an excuse. My father and my grandfather and they all had gray hair when they were very young. So, but the point is that in many cases, actual hair color can come back, et cetera, because of solubility. So solubility and hydration is a solution to all kinds. I mean, for example, eye problems is really often related to hydration, and back problems, and just so to have maximum solubility, I'd like to give is a solution to so many health problems. And so that's why not only does it taste better, but obviously you get better hydration. I want to give one more classic example here. You know, we have Therify plasma centers around the world, and we'll talk about that. And it's wonderful. But many of them are using the Imploder also, and in several cases, at least Norway, and at least several others, use a super imploder in a spa next to the Therify plasma. Why? Well, if you pass water through the imploder, it's becoming more and more wet, literally soluble. And in that spa, they had amazing results with skin problems, eczema, psoriasis. They had lots of reports. Obviously, they're anecdotal, but they're powerful and they're replicable. And so for skin issues, again, super soluble water is a miracle maker. And you recycle the water through the imploder in the spa, for example, and then you drink imploder water. And of course, then the Therify plasma also puts spin density in the water. And that's actually the next subject of conversation here, about the plasma. But anything we've missed so far, Eva, how are we doing?
I just put a link. I'm answering the people in the chat, and just put a link about the Therify. But I would like to go a few minutes deeper about. It's not about that you reach water. It's not about how much water you drink. Is the relevant here? Is it the water you're drinking is alive or dead? If you drink water that comes from straight tubes that was put in PVC tubes or metal or any type of non-natural structure that makes water go straight and 90 degrees angles that can't let her spin, as more water you drink, you will not be hydrated, because what Dan is saying is that it's about liquidity. It's about how water is structured. If it's implosion is the force that grabs energy. And that's why pine cones and the seeds are all like with this structure, because absorbs life force. That's why the imploder makes life force grow. But I really would like for people to understand that we really need to get together and free water from all these confused representatives that they perceive water fragmented, they perceive water like something that you can own. They don't understand that we are immersed in water complete. So could you go a little bit further about how relevant it is to drink water that is alive, that is free and spinning in her natural cycle, for people to get it? Because when someone as a representative come and say, hey, I'm going to put you these tubes to secure your water, it looks like they're doing good, but they are really killing you for real. They're not helping.
Yeah, well, obviously the spin density in the water, which is what we call life force, is delimited by many external factors. And you're right, if the pipe itself were braided, you would keep a little more of the spin there, as Schauberger proved. But there are many other issues as well that decrease the spin density, especially high pressure and high temperature reduce spin density. And we made measurements in the UK when we first just invented Imploder, how long the life force in the water would retain the seed germination effect. In this case, it was over 100% growth effect we were getting with the Imploder. How many days could you store that water and still get the growth effect? And we found generally you could restore it for at least 2 or 3 days in a tank. However, that life force was reduced by high temperature, high pressure, and it's true, as Eva is correctly saying, that when the water is in certain metals, it's worse because the capacitive charge is bleeding. But also, of course, exposure to certain pollutants and plastics that can be issues too. There are certain potable-related plastics. Obviously, certain ceramics are fabulous because they can have a much higher dielectric constant, and therefore, dielectric constant is the definition of charge distribution efficiency, and it just happens that charge distribution efficiency is named life force. So obviously, you know, storing it in gold would be good, but maybe if you don't have that handy, you can at least get a sense of how the water is losing life force in these long pipes and high pressure. And non-metallic containers obviously are better. And of course, exposure to electrosmog and bias voltages reduce the spin density in the water. So all these things, and remember, the ability to remember spin is life. It's really true. And one way I like to remember that, I always say that if you're driving by and it's a really good river, then every child in the back of the car will immediately want to pee. However, if it's not a really good living river, then every child is not immediately going to ask to pee. and that's good physics instruction, because the water inside your body, remember, people were invented by water because water wanted to move around. You know that story. So the water inside your body, when exposed to water outside your body that is connected to life, which is to say embeddability, because the water is not as stupid as we are. It knows that the only way to live forever is to embed perfectly in immortal spin. That's why the Sufi master who could make the perfect echo is the saint. The perfect echo is the perfect maintenance of spin. And the perfect echo for water is the perfect vortex. So if the water in your body sees the water outside your body in an embeddable way, that with life force, then immediately you're going to need to pee, because your water in your body is not stupid. It wants to join the flow. And that actually applies to an old important lesson in geobiology, why a good geobiolog rearranges the house so the walls prevent people from standing and sleeping over water veins. Well, what's the physics? Well, you'd say, well, if it's a beautiful water vein, wouldn't you want to be right near it? Actually, you know, you go right near the water vein, you've got all that charge going. It's a beautiful thing. However, if you stand there or if you sleep over a water vein, you know what happens? Your aura wants to go away. Can't blame it. It wants to join the flow. So you literally might get sucked in. So it's very interesting the way these principles apply to geobiology, because the advanced work here, which is work on the deep rock, or what they call primary water, deep structure water, locating those water veins, we found by measurement, can be measured indirectly by the efficiency of capacitive coupling in a perfectly tuned circuit. And the reason why walking over a water vein will increase the efficiency of coupled capacitors is called phase conjugate dielectric. It's literally how DNA radio works, because you get that charge implosion, you embed the transfers to the longitudinal wave, which we'll talk about maybe later. And that longitudinal electromagnetic, sometimes called scalar or torsional, is actually how DNA radio works as well.
Would you mind to share the screen again with the visual of the Imploder, so people can see again that image of how implosion works, how gravity and bliss works, and how life force can be replicated by installing. And another question: if people want to install, like in an industrial size, or in their environment to grow seeds or to grow their own veggies, how can they do to restore that natural movement of spinning if they don't have like a river beside or the capacity of
yeah. Right. Well, there's an if you go to theimploder.com and click on the ULTRAIMPLODER link, which takes you to fractalfield.com/ULTRAIMPLODER, you actually see a film here of the installation of an ULTRAIMPLODER. Here's it's just showing the mounting of the device and how you set it up, etc., etc. So that film there gives you a really practical, hands-on installation instruction. Remember that these devices are heavy. This is 40 pounds, it's mechanically the way you connect it is it's simply a 26 inches long, 1 inch stainless steel pipe with a male thread at both ends. So it's the physics of how to connect it is literally just like screwing the threads on a pipe, actually. But in terms of making life force on your farm, that's just one step. There is also charging the water with the biodynamic technologies. And maybe I should show you our biodynamic triploder here. Let's see if I can bring that up. Got too many windows here. Okay, so I'm going to look at biodynamic. So this, using France's leading biodynamic scientist, Laurent, we take the inner cone of the Vortex. This is the triploder you're seeing, and they put a very sophisticated biodynamic preparations, which we now know are highly capacitive and capacitively coupled. Thin layer of gold, beeswax, and certain biodynamic preparations, for example, replace the phosphorus or the calcium in the soil. So if you know your soil is short on phosphorus, you can put that back in the water without fertilizer with this technology. It's amazing, the biodynamic triploder. And he's actually demonstrated commercially ability to eliminate not just fertilizers and antibiotics in both plant and animal farming, including shrimp and grape farming. It's amazing. So when you add biodynamics, which is naturally using the dynamization of the vortex, and so then I will.
So what you say, dynamize water, increase the immune system, so allows you to be healthy. So you don't need to, you or the animal that you live with, they don't need any chemicals, or the plants that you're growing, they don't need any chemicals.
Yes. Well, and when you use biodynamic science and you potentize from inside the vortex, you actually can replace whatever's missing in the soil by the physics of putting the right capacitance inside the nozzle to charge the water with whatever's missing in the land. Biodynamic science is amazing. I just wanted to give a couple examples. So here, Laurent has optimized the triploder with these biodynamic preparations and then mounted it in a very special high pressure rated array with the biodynamic triploder. And these are pictures of the shrimp farming results. And I mean, we actually flew Laurent to Thailand. Here you actually see the high pressure, the pressure water going through the biodynamic triploder for shrimp farming. And let me tell you about this. It is so amazing. Remember, half of Asia is dying because of the pollutants they're using in shrimp farming these days. I mean, we're talking chlorine and chemicals, and it's just incredible. Well, here they have to replace the water like every day. It's just horrible. Well, it turns out that when you use the biodynamic triploder designed for shrimp, we proved by actual trials in Thailand, complete elimination of all need for chemicals, no chlorine, no nothing, we eliminated the need to replace the water. The shrimp grew literally double the size, double the rate with half the food. It was just, that's just the beginning. I mean, so when we combine the biodynamic science with the imploder science, and now Laurent and our biodynamic team is experimenting with the ULTRAIMPLODER as well. So the potential here is amazing. You know, it's true that in many cultures, the pharmaceuticals have so taken over that if you tell them, here's a way to eliminate fertilizers for the wine making, you know, there's a rebellion underway because half the country's economics depend on selling those fertilizers. But eventually we know we do not need fertilizer. We use biodynamics and a vortex, and you can absolutely revolutionize farming. And we're setting up demos in Australia as well. So
It makes sense because if you increase life force, all your creature works perfectly, and your immune system is fine. So you don't need nothing to avoid any attack from the external world if you're an animal. And if you're a plant, then you increase life force. The most obvious is that you're going to grow from 2 to 5
And
times bigger.
and think if
No, because you expect to increase your energy. So if you increase your energy through the water, because water is more alive, you don't need so much food. When you eat alive water, you are not hungry at all because life force is within it. So it makes complete sense.
And think practically, what the biodynamic scientist has done. He went to the farmer who just went broke buying fertilizer to put the phosphorus and whatever else back in his soil. And then he takes a biodynamic preparation, sticks it in the center of the inner vortex cone, so it's capacity charging the water with the electric signature and phosphorus, and just saved that farmer $1 million in fertilizer bills, and it works every time. Hello, of course the fertilizer industry is going to be upset, but eventually, these farmers all over India are committing suicide because of their fertilizer bills. I think we need to get on the case with biodynamics and the Vortex and the Imploder. That's exactly right.
Yeah, of course. The chemistry industry is made for increased benefits, and as we know, corporations are not alive entities. So if you increase only economic benefits in the price of life, you are not doing a good job. And life at the end is, by understanding life, you can increase life without no man-made things.
Well, and we're not here to say that corporations are evil in general, but the point is that corporations that understand the physics of life force will work so much more efficiently, and that obviously is necessary on this planet pretty quickly. I see that we have about 10-15 minutes left. We might want to do some questions, and we're going to do a section on the plasma, the therapy.
Someone asked here, what is your point of view about the investigation of Dr. Masaru Emoto about the impact of emotions in water, impact of intention, I think he meant. I don't know.
We loved Mr. Emoto. We lectured in many countries with him, especially near Barcelona there. Georg Gaup, his son, was running Emoto's lab in Europe, and really fabulous work. And it's true. In sensitive crystallization, the crystal geometry during freezing will meaningfully represent the charge structure in water. That's good. Unfortunately, Emoto's group, for the most part, did not understand the science very well. A lot of scientists would come to his lectures and walk away saying, well, it was beautiful, but there was no science. And it's true, there was no science. For one thing, they didn't really understand that replicability is required to call it science. And Emoto's research didn't know what replicability was. But it was a beautiful way to teach people the effect of love on water. It's real, and water is a receiver for love, and the capacitive field of water will reveal that. And our tools are getting much better to do that work. And so Emoto leaves a wonderful legacy. And our friend, Dr. Karatkov, was at Lake Baikal, I think, with him, and measured the effect on the whole lake's water from the rituals they did, and that's real. So it was a lot of beautiful work, and we're just trying to add to the rigor of that science.
Thank you so much. Anyone listening to this could write in the chat, and I would read it and read it to Dan. Meanwhile, Dan, would you explain us how the therapy increase plasma? You can use plasma devices to therapy and increase life force and order using it.
Exactly. So now I was going to use some of the visuals from the Therify project here. Are you seeing the Therify screen now?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So Therify.net project started with a famous scientist in France named Antoine Prieuré. Let's see if I have any of those slides. And Antoine Prieuré had built plasma machines inspired by Reich and Lakhovsky, and used a frequency signature inspired by, here's Lakhovsky, for example. And Lakhovsky intentionally used golden ratio, but did not know how to phase conjugate with opposing pairs, and did not know how to tune to Planck. So this is some of the in pink here, U3, 10, 32, 50, you see the frequencies that Antoine Priory actually used, healed thousands of cancers, spent millions of dollars per device, and no one had a clue of why it worked or how it worked until me. And the day I understood was when I saw that, you see these frequencies in pink here, his frequencies, which he got over decades of testing, starting with Tesla, Rife, Lukovsky, 310, 32, 80 hertz, that cascade. It turned out that those frequencies he used were very close to my original equation named origin of biologic negentropy. So I had discovered that if you took here Planck length times integer exponential golden ratio, you produced all the living key biologic frequencies: Schumann harmonics, brainwave harmonics, hydrogen harmonics, Earth year, Venus year, solar year, galactic year, precessional year, and the only two frequencies that make photosynthesis work. I mean, we knew what was the cause of negentropy in life. So the day we saw that the frequencies that Priory used fit my equation was the day said, oh, we can finish this work. And that's the day we built Therify.net. My partner, Paul Harris from Western Canada, who was for years an expert on noble gases and the use of hydrogen plasma. And he's also one of the world's leading teachers of practical hands-on alchemy. And so this tube, which you see from ancient Egypt, we think was actually a charged noble gas tube to reduce aging, to produce rejuvenation. That's people say this was a light bulb in Egypt. We say crap. We say no, this was their technology, because we know the Anunnaki Draco's problem on arriving at Earth. The atmosphere was not phase conjugate, so they were aging catastrophically. So they said, I'm raising a Shem unto the Lord. Shem means a black hole, implosive charge field, the Garden of Eden, and that's what living plasma does. So we took, let me see if I have a picture of the components of the device here. I don't know if you can see it here. There's on the right here, you can barely see it. There's a large black case, which contains a bifiller Tesla coil. And we took my frequency cascade in the phonon, low frequency cascade, from about 2 to a couple hundred hertz, 10 or 15 harmonics in that cascade, very complex waveform, synthesized digitally, very accurately. And then we combine that with a very expensive amplifier in the megahertz range to a broad spectral phase conjugate waveform. And then it comes out of that into a bifiller Tesla coil. Pictures that here. And which is under the bed here and to the right here. And then we output that wave from the bifiller Tesla coil. It emerges as a very broad spectral phase conjugate wave in two poles, exactly 180 degrees phase conjugate, out of phase at 500,000 volts, and we dump it into the noble gas tube you see on top. The complexity of the noble gases is a proprietary here, but that noble gas is an optical conjugator. So now I got optical conjugation, I have RF, high frequency conjugation, and I have a low frequency cascade, which is profoundly conjugate. So I got very big pine cones kissing noses in the center. For example, Priory didn't even know that you need an opposing pair, and that's basic. So we started there, and we've been, I don't know, 3-4 years now, building Therify systems. And I have to say, you check out Therify.net, the stories from around the world just are off the charts. Pain elimination in short order in many cases. Anecdotal stories, we do not make medical claims, but still the anecdotal reports are off the charts and the interest is off the charts. It's a fabulous thing. We used, for example, the physics of Agnihotra to teach this principle. Here you've got a plasma, you're burning the ghee, and you do it in a phase conjugate array, right angle, which requires sunrise and sunset, for example. And the right angular interface velocities, which is how you do phase conjugation in lasers, means that you can embed those vortex at angstrom level accuracy into the perfect pine cones kissing noses, basically a cube. And that's how phase conjugation is done in lasers. That's how it's done in Agnihotra. And with Agnihotra, you get this amazing fertility effect. And oh, by the way, the people at Bhopal and Nagasaki survived much longer than the Agnihotra. And there's a whole village in Poland where the Agnihotra turned the whole village into a fertile ground. The physics is that it embeds this longitudinal array. So this leads us to many things, a conversation about a mechanism here. First of all, yes, as we said, when you take the Therify and zap water, you have amazing results. When you zap seeds, the results are amazing. People have taste the water, they can't believe it. The seed results are just, we're selling these systems now just for agriculture. It's amazing. But what I wanted to try to talk about, and there's only a few minutes left and my voice is running out. This is one of the limitations of talking too much, but is the physics of how it works. So when that charge goes down that pine cone, that it's called transverse EMF inertia, is translated in vorticity down the toothpaste tube, squeezed out at the Planck threshold into faster than light potential velocities called longitudinal interferometry, which is the physics of everything in spiritual literature, actually. Action at a distance in physics and lucid dreaming. And we've proven it. The Therify has a dramatic lucid dreaming effect. And by the way, that's how you survive death if you're interested. So this ability to propagate a longitudinal array coherently, which requires a fractal, a rose-like structure, why Jodie Foster had to use a dodecahedron in contact. And that fractal longitudinal rose-like array is the nodal array of the collective unconscious, the only place where telepathy and phone calls to ancestors are possible. And I'm bringing this up for a couple of reasons. Therify plasma, among other things, is famous for healing at a distance, action at a distance. We're having success stories around the world. Don't believe me, ask the 25 countries of Therify listed there. And what I try to teach the physics of why longitudinal propagation coherence causes successful action at a distance. Literally the physics of prayer, if you will. And so we tell people, it's quite clear, this is not a miracle. No, it is physics, but it's beautiful, loving physics, which is that, for example, if you would like action at a distance to work better, if you want your prayer to work better, if you want your Therify to work better, you want your labyrinth or cathedral to work better, and the only place you can work at Cozy Rev Mirror, it has to be at the place where the Earth magnetic line crosses, which, by the way, reduces radioactive critical mass measurably. The physics is that that node is centripetal, and that's where DNA radio works. That's where the Cozy Rev Mirror got military quality telepathy, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're a therapist doing plasma healing or plasma water charging, whatever, and you're doing remote healing, you can prove to yourself the physics of longitudinal coherent propagation, because when you test it at sunrise or sunset, or at equinox or solstice, or the place where the magnetic lines are in a cross, it always works better. If you put the device at a magnetic node, for example, if you put yourself at a magnetic node. So that's an introduction to Therify plasma. And yes, it is amazing for water. The group, it was actually in Canada, that said they had 500% growth effect by zapping seeds, the hemp cannabis with the Therify. They said it's a big secret because we're going to revolutionize the industry. Well, I said it's not a secret because it's simple physics. Okay. Any questions? Oh, your mute's on there, Eva. Eva, unmute. Unmute your mic. There.
Sorry.
There.
Again. Someone asked, could you please point in which of your websites you point out the errors that you dissolve from Tesla and Einstein? Because someone asked about energy and Tesla, and I know that a lot of things that the new scientists are using are from their discoveries, but I know you optimize everything they were looking for and you find out how. So could you point which your websites?
Probably the best website with all the intro to the physics, and the slide is called Einstein-Induced Insanity. I'm not picking on the poor guy. He did a lot of wonderful stuff, but he was a lot of very sad confusion, like not having a clue why an object falls to the ground, and calling action at a distance spooky, and thinking it takes infinite energy to go through the speed of light. I mean, you got some profound mistakes there, Mr. Einstein. Anyway, it's fractalfield.com/vacuum energy. And it's one word, vacuum energy.
Vacuum.
Yeah, fractalfield.com/vacuum energy. And all the intro to that science is all there, and the best films. And that's the film I did at the International Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference, Amsterdam, last year. And it also has the Einstein mistakes and the Tesla mistakes slides. Example of Tesla mistakes. Again, we don't want to pick on these people. Amazing contributions. However, the day that Tesla chose 60 cycle is the day that America lost the possibility of being part of the only really exciting new technology on the planet, carbon nano. Because guess what? When carbon grows like a flower, called Buckminster fullerene, the hottest subject in modern chemistry, it's conjugate implosive negentropic. And if you can make it 99% pure and rotated, well, you've replaced every energy and propulsion technology on the planet and made the rest of the Earth look like the Stone Age. But you need to be able to make it pure enough. Well, with the carbon nano project. The hilarious thing is, and I think I call this karma. So 60 cycle propagates across North America, right? And turns out if you build these, it takes $1 billion plant to start with phase 1 of these projects. If you do it in a 60 cycle country, no chance, not a prayer, it ain't gonna work, not gonna happen. No, but if you go to Europe where they got 50 cycle, which happens to be the most commonly mentioned frequency in all the literature on cancer healing, and exactly golden ratio interdirectional Planck, and a key frequency of therapy, et cetera, et cetera. So 50 hertz is actually can be kind of magic. So in Europe, where you got 50 cycle and you try to make carbon grow, you got a prayer. In America, 60 cycle, you don't got a prayer. So this is an example of a Tesla mistake, because Tesla really did not know what life force was, unfortunately. He had indirect intuitions about how scalar, which is really correctly called longitudinal technology, can propagate energy at a distance. But even then, when he was trying to propagate energy at a distance, you can see those light bulbs he planted on the lawn to try to make them light up at a distance from the high voltage tower. He did not place those light bulbs in a longitudinally phase coherent fractal conjugate array. So it's proof that Tesla did not actually understand how action at a distance worked.
About that, I learned because of you that the aura grows in 4998 cycles. So 50 cycles in Europe is much healthier. And if you're in 60 cycles, your aura can explode, like can expand. Is that correct?
The best would be a cascade, and it's true. The actual golden ratio times Planck is 49.9 something hertz. He's right, and that is the magic. It's true, and it's true that 60 hertz is more dangerous as electrosmog than 50. But there's many other issues of danger in electrosmog, RF, and it's really true that our ability to be DNA radio, which is the only thing that differentiates us from having a soul with the Borg, requires we get away from our electrosmog, our Wi-Fi. And when we turn on the Wi-Fi in this house, everybody gets nausea immediately. We can feel it instantly. And gradually, once your body gets tuned, you just don't want anything to do with that crap. Anyway. Okay.
So basically, yeah, sorry, what are you saying?
No. Is there another question that we should?
No, there's no more questions. When people ask, I post them the links of your sites and
great.
For people. Is there any message you want to tell to the youth that are trying their best to restore nature and restore human behavior, more aware of sensitivity and life force?
That's a beautiful question. Valerie is here studying permaculture and studying how to grow a food forest. And if you incorporate fractal rose-like pattern magnetic geobiology in the permaculture and food forest, there's this lovely new documentary now on regenerative farming. So there's a lot of material out there. Genetic diversity, that's another question. We should come back and have another conversation about that. But that's very important. You're right. We send blessings to everyone working on that. Thank you. Thank you.
you so much, Dan. Thank you for being with us here, and thank you for sharing such amount of wisdom. I hope you last long, as you know how to do it. You know how eternity works, so we need you life and happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Thanks for being there. Blessings.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow. Okay, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing with us this amazing moment of mutation in Earth, and to keep your hope in your faith in humans that are doing their best to recover order, not only within this environmental